Our Savior, Jesus Christ, told us, if we do it to the least of these, we have done it unto Him. There are thousands of unsung heroes in the faith community making a huge impact. These are the people that are serving the least of these. Good morning. This is Marilyn Arnold, and I want to welcome you to my very first podcast called The Least of These. I'm really pleased because I'm being supported by the Barnabas Group, and we're going to be interviewing different people from the Kansas City area who are making a difference. How many people here know who Lieutenant Colonel Steve Russell is? I'm guessing nobody. If anybody does, very, very few people. How many people know who Taylor Swift is? Lots and lots of people, right? Lots of people. But Taylor Swift, and yes, she's a wonderful entertainer, but Lieutenant Colonel Steve Russell was one of the guys who were on the team that got Osama bin Laden. And he's going to be coming to Kansas City in April. So I want everyone to learn more. We'll have more information about that. But this is what I want to do. I want you to meet the Steve Russells of this world, the people that do the quiet things. And so this morning, I am very, very happy to introduce you to my friend, Bronson Ko. Bronson is the founder and owner of KOMA, which is I'm going to have him tell you about. So welcome, Bronson.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for coming. Tell me, first thing off, I want you to tell me about you. Tell me how you got started. Tell me about your martial arts, and then we're also going to talk about your podcast, about your father's business. So tell me about you. What do you want me to know?
Well, born and raised in Kansas City, I started in martial arts at an early age, actually 4 years old. So my father had his own studio in Blue Springs, and as soon as I was old enough, he threw me in there. And it's funny because the first month that I actually was trying to do this, I cried and I wouldn't even go out there. So he taught me in his office one-on-one for like a month. I mean, granted, I was 4 years old. Back then, Chuck Norris, Bruce Lee, they were still pretty popular.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a lot of adults doing it, so I was surrounded by giants. Fast forward, my father moved the studios around and such, but I started teaching it when I was 15 years old. And I actually got my black belt when I was 7, which is crazy to even think about now, but I was in the studio every single day. It was basically like babysitting. And I started teaching when I was 15, and the way that happened was my father decided he wanted to take a little break that day. He said, Bronson, go ahead and start teaching, and then he went in his office and shut the door. And I had no training. I remember this moment so clearly. I fumbled my way through it, and I just did my best, but that kind of started the whole journey of how I got to where I am today. Went to KU. Actually, I want to rewind just a bit. During high school, he had me running his second location. So he moved to Overland Park. He had one at 130 Metcalf, 105th and Metcalf. And then he had a second one at 135th and Quivira. It was a smaller one. So he couldn't be at both. I'm 17 years old, 18 years old. And during high school, he had me literally open the studio, teach all the classes, clean, take the money, all that stuff. And I actually got a work release my senior year of high school. So I left at noon, and I did that my entire senior year. And then I ended up going to KU, and he actually told me, you need to get a real job. This is not a career. It's almost like he said, you're above this. And I'm thinking, okay, I guess I'll do that. So I started in business, and then he's like, no, that's not enough. You need to do something like a white-collar job or degree, such as lawyer or engineer. So I went to engineering school.
Okay.
It lasted about a year. I mean, it's funny, I look back, and I feel like it's not that I wasn't smart enough. I just wasn't patient enough. And I eventually went back to business. My last year in college, for some reason, it was actually my last semester in college. I was thinking, you know what? I want to do that martial arts thing. I want to teach again. I want to have my own studio. Mm-hmm. And I presented this idea to him, and at first he's like, "What are you talking about? This. I don't know about this." Eventually, I talked him into it. So we opened my first studio literally the first day after graduating high school. This is back in 2000, or not high school, college. Mm-hmm. This is back in 2006. And I remember, I will never forget the days of opening that studio, 0 students. Mm-hmm. It was all set up, 0 students, just me. Yeah. And this is back in the Yellow Pages days. And, we threw a little ad out there or something, but by God's grace, I grew. And we actually doubled within the first year. Within 7 months, we were very profitable. And I went to my father and said, "Hey, I want to buy this from you." And he said, "No, you're not ready." And I was so stubborn back then. I'm still a little stubborn now, but it was a lot back then. I said, "You know what? You can take it back then." And he said, "Okay, you can buy it from me." And he made a good return on his investment. But then we kept growing. Fast forward today, I've with my wife built 2 buildings. So we have 2 locations now. And 18 years later, it's crazy what God has done in my life with this business. We employ 25 people. We have anywhere from I think we're up to like 550 students. It's just incredible how many lives that we've touched in the last 18 years. From ages 4 all the way up to, we've had a 65-year-old grandpa who's doing it with his kids, or his grandkids at least. And today is just all about pursuing God's will. What do you want me to do with your business, stewarding your business?
That's right.
I get selfish because I want to grow like now. I want to have 100 locations. Mm-hmm. And I've had to, he's disciplined me through this process of, no, you're not ready for that yet. And maybe that's not in your future. Yeah. And I've had to come to the reality that his will is always best, not mine.
That's correct.
Even though in the moment I think mine is.
Of course we do.
Yeah.
I've been reading a lot in the Bible verses, and it really talks about how our challenges are for us, because that's how we learn to trust God. Mm-hmm, to trust God in everything that happens. Yep. And that's how we learn about him and learn and walk what I call the path of the kingdom entrepreneur. Mm. And you definitely are a kingdom entrepreneur. I love that. Could you tell me about some of the children? One of the things, and you and I have talked about this before, is that parents are trusting you with the most valuable thing that they have. Mm. If I put my child or my grandchild with you, I'm trusting you. And we've heard there's so much going on today where you cannot trust people. So do you have some stories? Can you tell me some stories about your children, some of your kids that have come in and how they've blossomed and how you've helped them?
Where do I start? There's so many of them. First off, we get tons of students, a lot of students who are not your typical student. Okay. Not neurotypical. So what does that mean? We've got a lot of ADHD. Mm-hmm. We've had a lot of autism. My son's autistic. I've had a lot of experience with helping these type of students, these special children. And it's interesting because in the beginning, even when I first started, there was just a natural reaction for parents to bring their child with some sort of learning disability to my studio. And in the beginning, I'm like, I'll be honest, I'll be very candid here. I'm like, I don't know if I can teach this child. This is going to be too difficult. Yeah. I want the star student that is very easy to teach.
It's easy to teach the smart kids.
Yeah, which means less effort for me.
Exactly.
But then there was this one boy that I will never forget, and he was very difficult to teach. And there was actually a moment that he was violent aggressive to another student, and I had to kind of hold him so he didn't hurt anybody. And then he ended up running out of the studio, down the street, and ran up a tree and stayed up there for like 20 minutes while the studio was packed with students who were teaching classes. I'll never forget that moment. But by God's grace, he caught back down. We got him back in. Today, I think he's in college, doing well. And that's just one of those stories of many that we've seen. Yeah. Even just with some of these other students who are maybe not on the spectrum, they don't have ADHD. They're just shy. Mm-hmm. They don't really do well in the team environment, that team sport environment.
Yeah.
They're very introverted, a lot of self-doubt. Mm-hmm. And years later, after being in our program, every single time, just give it time, they've blossomed. It's crazy to watch. The first couple of years of doing this, I'm like, okay, this is luck. This is just luck that this is happening. 10 years go by, 15 years go by, and I'm thinking, all right, this thing works. Yeah. What we're doing, there's something about it. Yeah. And I know what it is now. It's the culture that we've created. These kids just will flourish. And it's like the gaps that they have get filled in, whether it be self-control, whether it be courage or confidence, again, that self-doubt, fear. Mm-hmm. And even with boys, the opposite is they need a little bit of fear. They're missing some of that.
Sometimes I had to put the fear in mind.
Right. The fear of authority, I think, is healthy. We all need a little bit of that. So, there's so many that we've definitely experienced. And last thing I'll add is we have a leadership program that I have so much passion for. So they'll start with us when they're younger, and they'll fill in those gaps. And then we start training them to be able to train those after them. So the younger, basically it's themselves as in a younger version.
Yeah.
And I'm actually really on getting in the weeds right now with this program, teaching these classes, and it's incredible to watch a 10-year-old, which is my daughter who's in this program, teaching a 4-year-old and already developing the leadership skills as a 10-year-old. I'm talking learning how to talk or speak in front of people, learning how to lead, all those things that we as adults don't learn until we have to because we're thrown into a manager position.
Yes, and we learn it as we go. Yeah. Well, that's really cool. That's really, really cool and really, really interesting. And I can't remember. I know I've read about the percentage of children that are autistic in children that have disabilities, and it's a large percentage. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if anybody knows why. I don't know if when we were growing up, especially me, nobody knew anything about anything like that. And those were a lot of the kids back then that went to 8th grade, and that was it. That was it. They did not go on. My husband's brother was that way. He went to 8th grade, and we know now if he had been going to school now as a child, everything would have been so different than it was. But he still did really, really well because he had family. He had family that watched over him.
Yeah, I think there's a combination of there's something maybe in the diet, something that I don't know. You can go down in that rabbit hole, but
yeah,
I think there's a little more diagnosing going on. Back then, it was just that guy's a little slow.
Yeah.
Now it's everybody has a diagnosis for something, right? Yeah. So I think it's good to diagnose because now we at least can give them the help they need.
Absolutely.
But I also believe that I feel that we don't want to go too deep into the diagnosing because then it's just a reason and not So, for example, for my son, I know if we start treating him like he's autistic, he will not grow. He will not improve.
Correct.
We've got to hold him accountable just like any other child, right? Yes. He has a twin sister, so I have twins, boy, girl twins, right? One of them's autistic. My daughter is not. we got to hold them both accountable regardless of their diagnosis. Now, it depends on their level, though, of what their potential is and what they can do.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I'm in total agreement with you on that, because then that teaches them that when they go into the world, they're going to have so much more self-esteem because they're going to feel that, hey, I'm as good as anybody else. I'll never forget I have a grandson who has a hearing disability. And I'm not sure what grade he was in. He was in elementary school, and one day he brought home a flyer where they were talking about having a special trip for children with disabilities. And he came in and he said, I don't know why they gave me this. I'm not one of those kids.
Exactly.
He never looked at himself that way, because we always said, we wear glasses because we can't see. You wear hearing aids because you can't hear.
Yep.
It's just that simple. And now he's a junior. He's in engineering school.
I love it.
Yeah. Next December he will graduate with a degree in mechanical engineering. This is pretty cool, and has his own little business.
I love it.
It is. It's how you treat children, and you treat them like everybody else. And I feel that a lot of this, I'm sure, with the fact that you do specialize, and you do specialize in children, in special children.
Yes.
And they are special, very special children, that the word gets around. I have no doubt that's a lot of your success, and the fact that you know how to treat them. You don't treat them like they're just as a disabled child. And it all goes back to the reason why I started this podcast, and I'm calling it The Least of These, because Jesus treated everybody the same. It did not make any difference to him who you were. Look at the woman at the well. Look at so many people, the people that couldn't walk, that had the issues. He treated them all the same. And they were all God's children. And we need to learn this, and we need to learn about the people like you who are the heroes, the unsung heroes. So tell me a little bit more about the podcast. Tell me about your father's business, why you started it, what's your goal to have it, and how's it going?
So it's been a year now. Last January, we launched it. I've always wanted to do a podcast on business. I have an obsession, and I have to make sure it doesn't become an idol of just business. I love business. Every type of business you can think of. Every time I go to a restaurant or a business, I don't just go in there as a customer. I'm going in there like thinking of, if I was an investor or if I was owning this place, what would I be changing? What do I love about this place? More with the lenses of an entrepreneur. So I'm thinking, I want to do podcasts on business, but then I couldn't figure out what it was going to be about, because there's so many of them.
Oh, yes.
Right? There's so many podcasts.
Yes, there are.
But then all of a sudden it hit me, this needs to be about Christ.
Absolutely.
This needs to be about the gospel. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm just going to do it. And we kind of threw it together and converted my office into a little studio. And it's a video podcast, so I have some video editing background skills with that. And I have a really talented guy who helps out with it too, our marketing guy.
Yes, you do.
Yes, he's great.
Yes.
Ryan. And all of a sudden it starts, and I've invited a couple of guests because I wanted people. So here's my goal. My goal with this is simple. I want people in the business world, in the workplace, to know they're not alone, that there are other Christians in the workplace right alongside you. I'm just giving them a platform to share their faith and how the gospel has reached them and how much they believe in that gospel. Because I think if we start hearing that over and over and over again, maybe there's somebody out there who's teetering, who's thinking, oh, there's something more to life than just making money and accumulating wealth and then having a comfortable life. There's more to this. I know there's a lot of people who seek that and they feel it inside. My goal, or at least my intention, is they listen to this podcast because their friend was on it.
Sure.
Their coworker. Like, oh, I didn't know. And a lot of times we're going to be like, I didn't know he was a Christian. And now it gives that person who's the guest on the podcast an easier way to share the gospel from their own perspective.
Yes.
Instead of doing it one-on-one, because that can be awkward at times. Mm-hmm. But this is easy because it's just a conversation. Now the camera's rolling, microphones are on. Just share it to as many people as you like, friends, family, and whoever.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I just think that's great. And it's probably only been the last 3 or 4 years that I've really learned about kingdom entrepreneurship. I truly did not know much about it at all. And probably the place we started, Larry and I, someone gave me a book. It was called The Work Within. And then also, looking back, when we lived in Omaha a number of years ago, I did a Bible study on why we go to work through our church. And that was good. That was fun. But The Work Within, I started learning about what they call your transformation. You have your time when you know that you were saved. Then you have your time, as I say, when we go to sleep in Jesus to wait for his return. But what about in between? What about in between? How do we treat people? What do we do that makes us show that we are Christian and that we are Christ-centered? And I have to tell you, of all the places that I've lived, I feel that spirit is stronger in Kansas City than anywhere I've ever lived.
Really?
Yes. I truly believe that. I have met so many people that give their lives. They are giving their life to help others. And and using their money in good ways. So I think that's really, really good. Okay, I'm going to ask you this. Since you're a podcaster, I'm going to ask you this. This is kind of a stinky question. Have you ever had anybody that was difficult to interview?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, the spectrum of humans that exist is infinite. So you're going to get all different types of personalities. You got from one side of the spectrum, those who give you 20-minute long answers.
Yes.
And then you have the 20-second answers. The 20-second ones are probably harder. And you really have to get creative on asking the questions. And but overall, I've been really blessed on having really good guests on. But yeah, there's times where I have to kind of pull it out of them.
Yes.
But I enjoy it. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
I love meeting all different types of people, hearing their story. And I've been so blessed to hear so many different stories from people. And the other thing we talk about on the show is just business and life, right?
Yes.
Business and life.
Yes.
What are the things that you learned? What are the things that you are doing now in business that's really helping pursue God's kingdom and really expand it? Because this is the thing that I really am passionate about is operational excellence. I think this is not talked about enough. I think the whole idea of scaling and trying to get bigger and bigger regardless of all the details that don't get accounted for. Let's focus on the details first, and then we scale. This is just who I am. I can't help it. But that's just one thing that I've had a couple of guests on who've preached that, and I'm just thinking, yes, that's exactly how we do it.
It is so true. And I don't know about you, but I am one of these people that I'm going to dig until it works. Now, that can be a problem at times. Because it's like I will spend the time, but I am going to get this right. And I know that came from my mother, all right, because she would always say, well, that's not good enough. You need to go back and do that again. It's not good enough. And so it's her fault that this happened to me.
Well, she held you accountable.
Oh, she did. Oh my gosh, totally.
In the moment, you probably hated it. But,
I did.
But looking back, you're probably grateful for it.
Oh, yeah, I am now. But can you imagine this 14, 15-year-old girl? First of all, I was a teenager. Second of all, I was a girl. And, your mother is saying, no, you got to go back and do that again. And I'm thinking, I don't want to do this again. And it's like, but if I don't, she's like Chinese water drip, torture, and she's going to drip on you. In fact, that's what my husband calls me now, is that I drip on him. But, but I am in agreement with you on that, and it is about the details. There's no question, and I've learned about that. I truly, because I see you as a visionary, and I'm a visionary, and we like to maybe, look at the big picture, but then you train yourself that you've got to look at the little picture too.
Yes.
You train yourself.
It takes a lot of patience for me.
Me too.
To slow down, because I'm, like I said, if it were just me, the flesh side of me wants everything right now.
Oh yeah.
In the biggest way possible.
Yeah.
But it's just learning to. Honestly, for me, it's just staying in God's Word.
Amen.
If I stay in God's Word, I'm good.
It is.
Making that a habit every morning, waking up earlier than usual, making that my first priority, that keeps me grounded and patient.
Absolutely.
Once I start kind of weaning myself off of that, that's when things start going awry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. That is so true. And I have become such a student of Proverbs.
Yes, that's one of my favorite books.
Now, you want to talk about the business person's book.
Yes.
That is
and life.
And life.
Yes.
I love the part in there where he writes about the fools, that the fools don't listen to others.
Yep.
I love it. I really do.
I've been memorizing one of my verses here. I wish I could remember exactly what. It's Proverbs 10:19. And it says, when there are many words, transgression is unavoidable, but he who holds back his lips has insight.
And
this is
true.
What I have to tell myself
That's
all
true.
the time. Keep your mouth closed and listen more.
Or as my grandma used to tell me, there's a reason why God gave us 2 ears and one mouth.
Exactly.
I think that was a hint for me.
Right,
okay.
right.
No, I'll never forget the first person that brought me into management. And that's what he believed. He didn't speak very often, but when he spoke, people listened to him. Mm-hmm. Now, don't you remember what was it, E.F. Hutton or something? When people listen, when they speak, people listen or something.
Yeah.
But that's really. It's
true. Not easy, especially for somebody who has a lot of ideas and opinions like I do. I actually will purposely have to put my hand over my mouth so I can just keep it closed. Mm-hmm. When we have meetings, because I will just interject and add my ideas, and it's just a constant learning challenge.
I think that also comes from being in charge. Mm-hmm. I know that I have to really watch myself, and I don't always do it because I'm used to being in charge. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And now when I go into something and I'm not in charge anymore, it's like, Marilyn, keep your mouth shut. You need to listen. Okay. Remember about the fool.
Right.
All right. That's what comes up to me. Well, I think we've talked quite a bit about your unique operation, your uniqueness. Is there anything else that you'd like to add about either the podcast or your martial arts? I think especially the martial arts, because I just feel like that is, God has chosen you to do this. Mm. You are one of the chosen ones, and this is what God said, Bronson, this is what I'm going to lead you to do, because I know that you have the heart for it. Mm-hmm. So is there anything else, if I was going to bring my child and sign them up to take classes through with you, what makes you unique? Why would I sign up with you instead of Joe Blow down the street?
Well, first off, I would say that I'd like to say that we're very much about the details. So you go on our website, schedule an intro lesson, all of that. After that process has been completed by the parent, then we take care of the rest. So we'll call, collect all the information, but we actually will have a reserved sign up front. So the parent comes in, they don't have to be scurrying around trying to get a parking spot and feeling anxious about that. I mean, right up front, you'll see their name.
That's a great detail. That is great.
It's like you know exactly where to park.
Absolutely.
As soon as they come in, they should be greeted by the front desk, the studio manager at the front desk. We take them in, get them all changed. The instructor will then come in, introduce themselves to the child to make them feel welcome. Sometimes if they're younger, then we'll have another younger assistant. That was that leadership team that I was talking about. We'll go alongside them to make them feel more comfortable. During that process, we'll get to know the child. And even before that on the phone, we try to really capture everything that is important to make that experience exceptional. What's going on with the child? Why do you want to come in? What are you looking for? Does the child have any special needs or any learning disabilities? We need to know about all that so then we can prepare to make a great lesson, that first impression. And throughout the lesson, we'll essentially try to make that child feel very welcome.
Okay.
And obviously have fun, because kids like to have fun.
Oh, yes.
The parent will be sitting right there. They can watch. They have a table, chair. It's all. They actually have a little reserve sign on the chair, so they have a place up front to sit, so they're not sitting just randomly anywhere. And then it's honestly our biggest unique is how we teach. That is it.
Okay.
I mean, we have a nice facility, pretty spacious facility, very modern and clean and all that stuff. I'm really picky about design, so that's all there. But that's not the differentiating factor for us. It's the teaching. It's what's going on those mats on the training floor. Our instructors are exceptional. I ran the numbers the other day, and we will accept less than 1%, about 1 to 2. I would say 1 to 2% of applicants to become an instructor with us. I mean,
that's pretty strong.
Hundreds
really
of people, and I'm doing all the hiring there. And if they are not a fit, we do not let them come in. The number one requirement we look for is, does this person love kids?
Absolutely.
That's it.
Absolutely.
If they love kids, we can teach them everything else. Yeah. If they are just doing this because they love martial arts, we're not going to be the place for you, because there's a lot of martial arts practitioners out there who they just do it for themselves, and they think, oh, I know martial arts, so now I can teach kids. No, that doesn't mean that you can teach kids.
That's right.
If you love kids, you can now use that passion to actually help and influence kids. I've always loved kids, even since I was a kid. And it's just always been in me. Even if I look at them, it's like, oh, cute, or let's get this child where he needs to be. And I always have this yearning. I try to surround KOMA, or at least have instructors in KOMA who has that same desire. And today I can say we have the best team. We have from males to females, younger. We actually have a mom who started with us, and now she's one of our best instructors.
Nice.
We've had that a couple times actually, so they kind of grew up in it. But anyways, again, the details are there, and ultimately the next one is going to be the organization. So hopefully there's not any kind of, the word I'm looking for here is like not knowing what to do.
You're talking about process. My word would be process.
Yes. So we have the process. We have a curriculum for every belt. Like we have all the belts. We have all the curriculums that are with that belt. The parent should know what they should be working on next, what's the expectations, all that stuff. And ultimately, we're always there to answer any questions.
Sure.
So anybody who's answering the phone, we train them to be okay with 1,000 questions. And we actually record our phone calls. We listen to them, and we give them feedback. If we even hear a hint of feeling or coming across as impatient, then we address that. because we have to be there for those parents.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we take care of those kids. We'll have students from ages 4. I have one girl who started with us when she was like 5, and now she's 16.
Oh, great.
And now she's one of our instructors. I mean, these students will stay with us. This is not like basketball or soccer where you just change coaches every 3 months and there's no relationship built.
Yeah.
I have a whole video series on our website. We call it the Alumni Series, where a lot of these students who started with us when they were young, graduated college, one of them got a full ride to USC, another is pursuing becoming a doctor. And these are all children who started with us, now adults.
They learned discipline.
Yes.
And they learned details from you, because I know that
Not
you,
me,
that
but
you teach that.
my team.
Your team.
Yep,
Your
yep.
team. Okay. One other question here. If you're interviewing someone, how do you figure that out? What question do you ask them to figure out whether they like the kids, whether that's what they want to do, or if they're that person that just loves martial arts and thinks they can teach it? What do you ask them?
I honestly will just ask them straight to that question. Why do you want to teach martial arts? Why? And if a lot of times they'll say, oh, I just love martial arts. I don't know if that's enough. And I don't stop there. You know what? For me, the best way to check this is have them teach. Obviously, we run a background check, do all that stuff, make sure they're safe.
Sure.
And then we'll have them teach a class and see. I can watch and get a feeling. I can feel their passion.
After all these years, I have no doubt that you can do that.
It's crazy. I can, as soon as I watch for 2 minutes, I can see, is this person natural with this or not? And ultimately, do they love those kids? Yeah.
Okay, next question I have for you. If you were to quit tomorrow, what would be left undone in this world?
Preaching the gospel. I mean, that's really
Good
what
answer.
that's what we're called to do.
That's right.
It's interesting that you ask that, because this is something I think about every day. Is, I'm pursuing business growth, all this stuff, but without leading people to Christ, what am I gaining with all this?
That's right.
What am I gaining?
That's true. And I'm trying to remember. I'm not good at verses, but there is the verse that, what is it? Something about if you all you do is build up stuff, what I call stuff. You've got that, but you've lost your soul.
Yeah. Yep.
And I so totally understand that now. It's too bad you have to not understand that when you're 15, but you truly understand that now. That's really true.
The good thing is God's in control, so
Amen.
Everything happens to His timing.
Oh yes.
I have to tell myself this all the time too.
Tell me about it.
And looking back, I wish I would have knew this earlier. Well, maybe you weren't ready to know that.
You weren't ready for it.
Yeah.
You absolutely were not. We're not ready for it. I agree. Well, Bronson, I don't know how to thank you for coming on this morning. It was so fun. I so enjoyed having you, and you and I could talk all day long. You know that. But before we go, I want you to tell again the information. If there's someone who's listening to this and they have a child that they would like to learn more about enrolling them with you, learn more about what you do, how do they get in touch with you?
Sure. They can visit thekoma.com, which is spelled THEKOMA.com. Go to our website, check out. We have videos and information there. Learn more about us. But then there's a button that says try us. I think it says try us, but then you can schedule a free lesson. I mean, there's no strings attached.
Nice.
Come in, do a full lesson, check out our facility. Our staff is very much trained on no pressure, right? If they want to do it, they want to do it. If they don't, then shake hands and thank you so much for coming in. Yeah.
You're still friends. Well, and you don't know, that goes back to, we used to talk about this, stepping on toes. No doesn't mean no. No means not now. Because situations have a way of changing. And I'm sure you've had people who have come in and it's been a year or 2 years and they come back
All the
and
time.
they say, we're ready now.
Yep.
Well,
We're seeing we're seeing more of that where a student will take a break and then they come back. Yeah.
Yeah, I can believe that. Yes. Well, to wrap this up, I'm going to ask everyone to subscribe to our podcast. I'm hoping that you learned something today. I'm hoping that you enjoyed hearing about Bronson and learning about what he does and what a fantastic entrepreneur that he is. So thank you, and we'll talk to you next time.